Begin, I request everyone to kindly keep their phones on silent. Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, board members, faculty, alumni, industry leaders, and friends of Great Lakes Institute of Management and Madras Management Association. It is my privilege to welcome you to the second Dr. Bala V. Balachandran Memorial Lecture, an evening that is as much about remembrance as it is about relevance. Our founder, Dr. Bala V. Balachandran, believed deeply that management education must never be static. It must evolve with industry, challenge conventional thinking, and above all, create leaders who inspire. The idea of an annual memorial lecture series carries that philosophy forward by bringing the idea of consequences to the forefront. This year, we are extremely privileged to have with us none other than Dr. Vijay Govindarajan, a stalwart in management education. Thank you, sir, for joining us in this evening. In our tradition, every important journey begins by invoking light, symbolizing wisdom, clarity, and purpose. May I now invite our distinguished guests to kindly proceed to the dais for traditional lighting of the lamp. Sirs, please. Thank you. Dr. Director, sir. Thank you. Sirs, can we come for a picture? Thank you. Thank you. And now to formally introduce the Dr. Bala V. Balachandran Memorial Lecture and set the context for this evening, I take pleasure in introducing you to Mr. Gautam Lakhamraju. Mr. Lakhamraju is the Chief Operating Officer at Great Lakes Institute of Management and a core member of its senior leadership team. Over the past decade, he has played a pivotal role in shaping the institution's strategic direction and growth towards academic legacy, institutional development, and student engagement. He's also the co-founder of Great Lakes Gurgaon, an important milestone in our institute's national expansion. Prior to academia, he worked as a management consulting in the energy sector with a leading global advisory firm. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Gautam Lakhamraju.
Good evening, everyone, and let me warmly welcome all of you to today's session. I think it's the second edition of our Bala V. Balachandran Memorial Lecture, and I'm deeply grateful to Professor Viji for being here and participating in this lecture. It's a special occasion because Dr. Viji has always been a well-wisher of Great Lakes. He has been kind to participate in sessions on our campus. I attended his, I think, session on campus in 2017-18. I attended his online lecture during COVID in 2021, and it's great to have him here today addressing this August gathering. So just to go back a bit in terms of why we started this memorial lecture series, Dr. Bala, as all of you would know, was a distinguished professor based out of US, but always committed to management education in India. He helped set up the 2-year full-time MBA program at MDI Gurgaon, and I'm actually a graduate of that. So he has indirectly impacted me and my education, but also then set up ISB in Hyderabad. And then, he wanted to set up a world-class institution in Chennai, which was his, let's say, Janmabhoomi, right? So that was a startup that he ventured on at the age of 67, post-retirement. And that was purely a passion project, something where he wanted to give back. And we wanted to build on that legacy. And I think as part of building Great Lakes, he could attract a large number of thought leaders from around the world to come to our campus, to interact with corporates here as well. And even our name, if you look at it, Great Lakes is kind of out of context for India, but it's in his context, connecting the Great Lakes region in US with Chennai. He was in Kellogg for almost 5 years as a distinguished professor there. So he wanted to connect that region with his Karma Bhumi, with his Janma Bhumi. And also he wanted to, he was a great marketing person while he was an accounting professor. He also wanted to attract, the top thought leaders in US of Indian origin to connect with the school here. And over the years, we had some amazing luminaries, whether it's late C.K. Prahlad to Raghuram Rajan and so on, who were all part of the institutions in the Great Lakes region coming to Great Lakes and here and supporting us in our academic programs, in giving, sharing perspectives with our stakeholders, right? So when we lost Dr. Bala, we thought we should continue this legacy, and and the best tribute would be, continuing what he started, which is helping bring in this global perspectives in a Indian context, and get people like Professor VG, who truly symbolizes our tagline, global mindset, Indian roots, right? There can be no better embodiment of that tagline. So having people like this, I think, is a great opportunity for us to learn, and I think somewhere imbibe in our own organizations as we, build for the next 20 years, or realize our vision 2047 of being a developed country. So it's once again, thank you all for joining us today, and hopefully we'll see you for future editions as well. And we hope to be a part of the ecosystem, corporate ecosystem in Chennai, and contribute wherever we can. And we'd like to have your support as well in our endeavors as we try to build this synergy between the industry and the academia. Right. So let me pause now. I think we are all here to listen to Professor VG. So thank you everyone, and enjoy the evening. I learned a lot from his session yesterday on campus. In fact, I had I think a 20+ minute conversation with my 11-year-old, inspired by something he quoted in that session. So I'm sure it's going to be extremely valuable for all of us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for setting the context so thoughtfully. To truly appreciate the life, vision, and the man and the legacy of Dr. Bala V. Balachandran, we now invite you to watch a short AV. Can we please have that AV? As his students used to call him Uncle Bala, and now we also carry that legacy. He truly was an inspiration for all of us. And with that, it is now my privilege to invite Dr. Sudhakar Balachandran for the welcome address and the introduction of our chief guest. Dr. Sudhakar Balachandran is a member of the board at Great Lakes Institute of Management and a tenured professor at the University of Illinois at Chicago, where he also serves as the academic director for their MBA program. With over a decade of experience as a management consultant and a corporate executive, followed by an equally distinguished academic career, including more than 12 years at Columbia Business School, he represents a rare blend of rigorous scholarship and real-world insight. His research focuses on cost management, performance management, incentives, and valuation, areas central to how organizations align leadership decisions with long-term value creation. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Sudhakar Balachandran. So
Hi,
we'll be
am I
joining
audible?
us.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, you're audible. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you, everyone, for attending this wonderful event. It is really with humility and great gratitude that I have the privilege of introducing Dr. Vijay Govindarajan to all of you. Obviously, he needs no introduction. So let me take this in a more personal direction. Dr. Vijay Govindarajan, known as a world-renowned scholar, was a dear, dear and close friend, confidant, I would say brother to my father. And he helped guide from the very beginning the inception and creation of Great Lakes Institute of Management. And really, without him and his insights, we wouldn't be where we are today. So it's really my privilege to have him here. Let me speak even more personally. When I started my doctorate at the Harvard Business School, and I'd say even about 5 years before that, when I was in management consulting, I was working on a corporate strategy project. And my father, as I was talking to him about the strategy project, handed me a book. And the book was titled Strategic Cost Management, and it was written by Vijay Govindarajan. And I thought, as I usually did to my dad, saying, Dad, this makes no sense. I'm dealing with a strategic question of how a company has to realign its product mix, and you're handing me a book about cost accounting. And Dad said, keep an open mind, read the book, try to think that sometimes things that don't connect with each other might actually give you the most insight to something that you're dealing with, or at least to your appearance don't look like they're connected to each other, might actually give you some insight that you don't see. And the book was absolutely revolutionary in helping me understand how, poorly thought out cost systems could actually lead to completely backward strategic decisions that backfire on the company. And so from that point, I launched on a journey in management. I think in many ways, VG was my inspiration to go to Harvard Business School to get my doctorate, because I knew that that was the credential that he had that enabled him to start thinking along these lines. And then I've since then had a chance to take a step back over the years. And I realized that one incredibly powerful thing to keep in mind is that it is often the case that things that on the surface don't at all seem to be connected to each other might actually have some deeper connection if you take the time to think through them carefully. I think back to when I was in high school and I was studying European history. And in 1793, the British had laid siege to a French city called Toulon. It was a port city. It was very important in battle as it controlled access into the city. And the British had laid siege to the city, which means they had controlled the city walls, they had closed the city gates, and the French were marshaling their forces around the city to attack. Many of you who've seen Game of Thrones have seen sieges of cities. You know that, battalions of army and artillery surround a fort and they try to batter down the walls, and it's usually incur heavy, heavy casualties along the way because your enemy is up above you firing down and you're trying to go through impenetrable stone walls. During one of the strategy meetings of this battle, an artillery battalion commander said something that every other general in the room laughed at him about. He said to them, there's this small outpost on a small hill, and we should divert our troops from the city and go take that small outpost. He didn't let the laughter dissuade him. He went on to explain that if we're able to take this small outpost, which is much easier than taking the city, we basically have a position above the entry to the port where we can fire down artillery onto the British ships, cut off their entire supply line back, and at that point, they went ahead with the plan. They quickly took the fort, and within a day, the British were in active retreat out of the harbor and seeking a peace agreement and vacating the city voluntarily. It's these types of insights that bring us all here today. We're all people who seek these type of insights. We're all people who think and reflect carefully about the practice of leadership, of management, and of strategy. And I'm really, really excited to hear Vijay's thoughts on how we take the latest in cutting edge technology and apply it to the most traditional of industries. Those parts of industry which lead to a balance sheet laden with property, plant, and equipment, heavy assets, businesses that we would never in a million years think of as asset light, and businesses that we don't really think of as high tech. And I think in many cases, in fact, in the history of Chennai, it's these heavy industries that have actually made us what we are. And so I think it's important to take time to think about how these need to change as we go forward, and how, all the new technologies, which seem to be disconnected from old school bricks and mortar manufacturing. Back when the internet came out, it was clicks versus bricks. We're way past the internet. The internet's in the rearview mirror. So this is even more historic a connection to make of something that is cutting edge today with something that's really thought of as old world. So I'm excited to hear his thoughts. I know you will enjoy hearing his thoughts. Let's please welcome Dr. Vijay Govindarajan.
We'll just start, sir. One moment, sir.
Did you need me back?
Thank you, Professor Balachandran, for those insightful remarks and joining us virtually this evening. To share the opening remarks, I now invite Mr. Lakshmi Narayan D. Mr. Lakshmi Narayan is the Managing Director of Sundaram Home Finance Limited and the President of the Madras Management Association. With over 30 years of experience in the financial services industry, he has led across risk management, operations, strategy, including senior roles at Sundaram AMC, GE Capital in India, Australia, and earlier at Citibank. A commerce graduate, qualified cost accountant, and an MBA from Liba, Chennai, he brings a practitioner's lens to leadership, governance, and management. May I request Mr. Lakshmi Narayan to deliver the opening remarks.
Thank you. I'll keep this brief because we are here to listen to Dr. Vijay. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my privilege to deliver this opening remarks at this special event, the Dr. Bala V. Balachandran Memorial Lecture. We're deeply grateful to the Great Lakes Institute of Management for partnering with MMA to commemorate the life and legacy of late Dr. Bala V. Balachandran, a towering figure in management education and a visionary leader. My heartfelt thanks to Dr. Sudhakar Balachandran for this collaboration, and I look forward to many more such initiatives. Today's theme, Fusion Strategy, Data and AI for Strategic Advantage, delivered by Professor Vijay Govindarajan, resonates profoundly with Dr. Bala's lifelong belief in technology's transformative power for business and management. For MMA members, this is a moment of pride and reflection. Dr. Bala played an instrumental role in our journey, nurturing our growth to a thriving association of over 8,000 members, corporate leaders, academicians, professors, and students, conducting more than 750 programs annually. Our recognition as India's best management association for 15 years in a row owes much to his wisdom, passion, and guidance as a member of our managing committee. His vision shines through the MMA Management Center at Pathari Road in Chennai. Working closely with Group Captain Vijay Kumar, Dr. Bala insisted on highest standards of excellence, evident in its architectural elegance, a lasting testament to his commitment. Dr. Bala could have continued his illustrious career abroad, but his deep love for India led him to establish the Great Lakes Institute of Management, now shaping over thousands of future leaders. Fusion strategy is timely and critical. AI's true power emerges when fused with quality data and strategic thinking, enabling organizations to anticipate trends, enhance agility, and build sustainable advantage. Yet, this requires strong governance and leadership that bridges technology with business goals. Professor Govindarajan's insights will show how to turn data and AI into a real strategic impact. My sincere thanks to Great Lakes Institute of Management, Dr. Sudhakar Balachandran, and Professor Vijay Govindarajan for this collaboration. Let's honor Dr. Bala's legacy by embracing his spirit of excellence and innovation. Thank you.
It is time now to move on to the most awaited moment of today's evening. And it is my honor to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Vijay Govindarajan, fondly known across the world as VG. VG is a world-renowned thought leader on strategy and innovation, a celebrated academic, best-selling author, and one of the most sought-after advisors to global CEOs. He is the Cox Distinguished Professor at the Tuck School of Business, Dartmouth, the highest distinction awarded to a Dartmouth faculty. He is also a former Marvin Bower Fellow at Harvard Business School and currently serves as a senior advisor to Acropolis Advisors, a leading strategy consulting firm. VG has worked closely with CEOs and top management teams at more than 40% of Fortune 500 companies, helping organizations navigate disruption, innovation, and growth. He is New York Times and Wall Street Journal best-selling author and a two-time award winner of the prestigious McKinsey Award for best-selling article published in the Harvard Business Review. Notably, 10 of his HBR articles rank among the all-time bestsellers. Before joining Tuck, VG served on the faculty of Harvard Business School and the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. His academic journey is equally remarkable. He earned his MBA with distinction and doctorate from Harvard Business School, where he won the Robert Brown Prize for the best thesis proposal. He's also a chartered accountant from India, securing first rank nationally and winning 5 out of 6 possible gold medals. And mind you, the only one he missed, as he himself wryly notes, was the best female student of the year. And this evening, we're all privileged as he speaks on a topic that sits at the intersection of strategy, data, and artificial intelligence. Fusion strategy, data, and AI for strategic advantage. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a very warm welcome to our guest, Dr. Vijay Govindarajan.
Thank you very much. It's a great honor to deliver this memorial lecture for Bala, who was my best friend, mentor, and well-wisher. Let me start my presentation by laying out a fundamental framework I have for innovation, which is the 3-box solution. Whenever I work with organizations, I tell them, think about everything you do inside your organization and put them in 3 boxes. How many of the projects you're doing today will be in box 1? And box 1 is about manage the present. It is about improve the performance of your organization the way it is constructed today. This is about optimizing your system as it exists today. If you're General Motors, you have a job to do in box 1, and that is to improve the efficiency of internal combustion-driven gasoline-powered automobiles, because that's your core business. That's your box 1. How many projects you have? That will be in box 2. And box 2 is about selectively forget the past. And how many projects you're undertaking in the year 2026? That will be in box 3, and box 3 is about create the future. Manage the present, box 1. Selectively abandon the past, box 2, and create the future, box 3. And what I find when I work with organizations is they way over focus on box 1. And then they think they are doing strategy. Is box 1 important? Absolutely. Is box 1 critical? Absolutely. But strategy must include box 2 and box 3. And what is the challenge for organizations in box 3? How do you create your future in the year 2035? And if you want to create your future in the year 2035, you have a job to do in box 2. Namely, you have to selectively forget. Let me clarify one thing right away. Strategy for any organization, therefore it includes General Motors, it includes every organization in this room, is about becoming a leader in the year 2035. That is what strategy is all about. But strategy is not about what you have to do in the year 2035. It is very much about the projects you're executing in the year 2026 across the 3 boxes so that you intersect with the year 2035. How are you allocating resources today? How is the organization energy focused today across the 3 boxes so that you stay relevant in the next decade? Another way we can define box 1 is it is about competition for the present. That is all about efficiency. Another word for box 2, box 3 is competition for the future. That is all about innovation. Of course, competition for the present is important. It is as important as competition for the future is. Therefore, strategy is always about how do you create your future while managing the present. And the reason why this is a challenge for organizations is the thinking process, the people, the capabilities, the metrics that you need to excel in box 1 are fundamentally different than the people, the processes, the metrics, the capabilities that it takes to excel in box 2, box 3. Yet in the year 2026, you got to do both. Again, let's go back to General Motors for a moment. We know what their box 1 challenge is. How do I improve the efficiency of internal combustion-driven gasoline-powered automobiles? But they have a job to do in box 3 as well. They have to become a leader in the auto mobility space by the year 2035. And one thing we know, digital technologies are going to fundamentally disrupt all industries, including automobiles. So by 2035, we will have a lot more self-driving cars. But if General Motors has to create its future in the year 2035, it is not about what it has to do in the year 2035. It is about what it is doing in the year 2026 to create that future. And you would agree with me, the people, the processes, the metrics, the capabilities it takes to excel in efficiency improvement in internal combustion-driven gasoline-powered automobiles in box 1 are fundamentally different than the people, the processes, the metrics, the capabilities it takes to invent the self-driving car so that you can be a leader in 2035. For instance, if you want to excel in improving the efficiency of internal combustion-driven gasoline-powered automobiles, you recruit mechanical engineers. If you want to create self-driving cars, you have to recruit software engineers. You have to recruit AI experts. They are fundamentally inconsistent capabilities. This is the central strategic challenge. If you want an example of a box 3 idea with which we in India created enormous value, enormous wealth, that would be in the mid-1990s when we had the internet. Somebody came up with this notion of global business model, global service delivery. And what this global service delivery means is Indian companies can do 75% of the software-related work in India, where the talent is much cheaper but equally capable, and only need to do 25% of the work near the global client's geographical location. That idea is a box 3 idea. And imagine the wealth and value we created in India. The whole IT services boom that came as a result of it, Infosys, Wipro, Tata Consulting Services, we have seen enormous value that got unleashed in the last 30 years. But that is going to be nothing compared to the value we can create in India with the next inflection point, which is Gen AI. And that's what I want to talk about. What is this big India opportunity if we can grab Gen AI and use it to create enormous value? And one way I can enter into this conversation is by noting when I started my academic career in the US, it was in the early 80s. I was on the faculty at Harvard Business School. At that time, the Harvard Business School faculty was asked to do research on the following question. And the question was, how would information technology, we didn't call it digital at that time, how would information technology change the world of business and the discipline of management? Here we are, February 2nd, 2026. We are asking exactly the same question. How would digital technologies change the world of business and the discipline of management? Of course, the technology infrastructure we had in the early 80s was primitive as compared to the technology tools we have today. For instance, in the early 80s, the best piece of computer hardware we had was IBM PC with a green screen. That is probably in some museum right now. The best piece of computer software we had in the early 80s was Lotus 123. In the early 80s, we didn't know anything about computers getting connected. We didn't know anything about internet. We didn't know anything about mobile. We didn't know anything about Gen AI. We have a lot more digital tools today. But the question is essentially the same question. How would digital technologies change the world of business and the discipline of management in the next decade? And this is the India opportunity. India can particularly lead in a specific way if we can grab this Gen AI. And the way I'm going to develop my presentation is I want to take a look at what has happened with digital technologies in the last 45 years, since 1980 till 2026. In the last 45 years, how did digital technologies essentially change the world of business? And I say it changed the world of business in three phases. Transformation 1.0 was where digital technologies improved the efficiency of your current business model, but it didn't change strategy. So therefore, Transformation 1.0 is all about box one. Think about SAP. Think about automating supply chain. Think about automating accounting, automating processes. This created enormous efficiency, but it didn't change strategy. In fact, Transformation 1.0 is what gave rise to the big boom in India for IT services, which is all about efficiency. Transformation 2.0 is where digital giants use digital technologies to introduce new strategies. This is box three. Google didn't make advertising more efficient. Google simply changed the way we do advertising. Netflix didn't make watching movies more efficient. It simply introduced a new business model in the way we consume entertainment. That is Transformation 2.0, where digital giants essentially destroyed B2C consumer sector. Transformation 3.0 is just starting. In Transformation 3.0, digital technologies are going to create box three strategies in the B2B asset-heavy industrial sector. The fundamental difference between Transformation 2.0 and Transformation 3.0 is in Transformation 2.0, we were either dealing with pure information goods like Google or physical products which simply disappeared like a camera. Whereas in transformation 3.0, the physical product will not disappear. We are now talking about asset-heavy industries like a tractor. A tractor will never disappear, but the value is going to migrate from the physical product to data and AI. And that is just starting. And I believe transformation 3.0 is the India opportunity. And I'm going to derive some important strategy principles from transformation 2.0 and say the same principles apply in transformation 3.0 in the asset-heavy sector. And finally, I want to wrap up by what does it all mean to the discipline of management? That is my last box on what are the strategy implications? How would the discipline of management itself be fundamentally transformed by this digital force? Let me start with transformation 1.0. The interesting thing that I find is in the 80s and 90s, information technology had a humongous impact on organizations. But information technology had practically no impact on individuals. The way we lived, the way we worked, the way we watched movies, the way we transacted was still in the analog world. Think about in the 80s, you came to work. You didn't do Zoom calls. In the 80s, when you transacted with paper currency, or at best with credit cards. When you wanted to watch a movie, you actually went to the movie theater and watched the Rajinikanth and Kamal Haasan movies. Fast forward to February 2nd, 2026, digital technologies are not simply transforming organizations. They are having a humongous impact on individuals, the way we live, the way we work, the way we transact, the way we watch movies is in the digital world. Today, we make payments through digital tools. When we want to consume movies, we watch it at home in Netflix. You may ask the question, how come in the early 80s, information technology had a humongous impact on organizations, but had very little impact on individuals? And how come digital technologies are having such a humongous impact on individuals today? And for us to understand that, we need to think about how the three laws of computing are converging today. Compute, connect, and cloud are converging. When they converge, it creates a humongous opportunity. A word about each of them, compute. By the way, anything that can be computed will be computed today. Anything that can be digitized will be digitized today. I see, for instance, a lot of you are wearing pair of glasses. The glasses that you are wearing, the eyeglasses that you are wearing is an analog product today. And I want to ask you a simple question. In the next 10 years, could the pair of eyeglasses become a digital product? Can somebody digitize the pair of glasses and put sensors in your eyeglasses so that your eyesight automatically adjusts as the eyesight deteriorates? Is that possible? If that is possible, think about the value you're going to unleash. With the analog pair of eyeglasses today, I also wear a pair of eyeglasses. With the analog pair of eyeglasses today, I have to go to an ophthalmologist once a year. Then he prescribes a new pair of lenses. Then I take that to an optician who fits that pair of lenses. All the cost and time and effort involved in the analog pair of eyeglasses will disappear if you digitize that product. Not only that, if the eyeglasses become a digital product, my eyesight is automatically adjusted in real time as it deteriorates. Whereas today, with an analog pair of eyeglasses, I correct my eyesight only once a year. Therefore, I want to challenge every organization in this room. Today, if you are making a physical product, ask yourself the question, what will it take to digitize the product? Perhaps the technology is not there. Maybe it's not cost benefit to digitize it today. But believe me, technology, the power of technology keeps on improving and the price of technology keeps on dropping. Therefore, watch out for the technology barrier. There will be a point where you can digitize your product. Connect. Everything that can be connected will be connected. The value is in the connection. When you connect humans to humans, when you connect humans to machines, that is where the value gets created. Cloud. 10 years ago, we used to think of cloud as simply a storage device. Today, cloud is a powerful computing. When compute, connect, and cloud converge, what you have is big data. When you have big data, what we have done so far with that big data is to automate processes. In the 80s and 90s, all that we did was to use that powerful data and AI to automate processes. When you automate process, you improve efficiency, but you don't change the strategy. But today, we have the opportunity to digitize the products themselves. When you digitize the product, the process of value creation changes. And strategy is nothing more than the process of value creation. Again, think Google, think Netflix, think Amazon. They are essentially creating new strategies. They are not simply making the current strategies more efficient. And by the way, this inflection point between transformation 1.0 and transformation 2.0 happened when Steve Jobs introduced this device. When this device was introduced is when we moved from transformation 1.0 into transformation 2.0. And just to drive home why that inflection point was so critical is I kind of took a look at the market cap of all the companies and said, what is the top 10 market capitalized companies in the world on January 2007? And the reason I chose January 2007 is iPhones were not introduced. And what you see is on January 2007, of the top 10 market capitalized companies in the world, there is only one tech company, Microsoft. Everybody else is a physical product company. In fact, prior to 2007, as a strategy professor, when I used to strategy classes, I always focused on competitive advantage based on products. This is the classic Mike Porter. Either you make the product cheaper, low cost, or you make the product better, differentiation. The interesting thing is, I took a look at the top 10 market capitalized companies in the world on February 2nd, 2026. And what you find on this chart is these are, by and large, digital giants. Of course, Microsoft is on the list today. They were on the list in 2007, but the 2007 Microsoft is very different than the 2026 Microsoft. But the point that I want to highlight is the digital giants that you see here are not the information technology giants you saw in the 80s and 90s. This is not Cisco. This is not Lucent. This is not IBM. This is not Dell. This is not Infosys. This is not TCS. This is not Wipro, because those companies were passively delivering products. They were not actively shaping strategies. But these digital giants are actively shaping strategies. And these are the digital giants which have created enormous value in the last 18 years. And let me pause for a moment and say, how did these digital giants, the Netflix, the Teslas, the Googles, and the Amazon, how did they fundamentally change the very definition of strategy and introduce new box 3 strategies. And for us to understand that, we need to go back to how do we build competitive advantage in any company. I say there is only 2 ways you can build competitive advantage: scale and scope. And what these digital giants did was they fundamentally changed the very definition of scale and scope. In the 20th century, industrial companies define scale as production-based economies of scale. If you think about General Motors, how did they define scale? It is based on number of cars produced and sold. This is a market share metric. So if you can sell more cars, your scale grows. When your scale grows, your sales revenue grows. It makes sense. That was their concept of scale. Whereas the digital giants, the Googles and the Netflix and the Amazon, they go by data scale. They go by web scale. Because they go by data scale, their growth is nonlinear and exponential. Whereas the growth of General Motors is linear and gradual. Why is the growth of General Motors in the 20th century linear and gradual? You can actually grow the sales revenue when you produce and sell more cars. But it takes time, because if you want to increase the number of cars produced and sold, you have to open new factories. You have to open new dealerships. You can do it, but it takes time. Whereas web scale grows exponentially. For General Motors, their notion of scale is number of cars produced and sold. For Uber, their scale is number of cars in their network. That is why their scale grows exponentially. Marriott, which has operated in brick and mortar style for the last 150 years, today Marriott has 1 million hotel rooms. Airbnb, which started a decade ago, they have well over 17 million hotel rooms. Scope is also something the digital giants fundamentally changed, because in the 20th century analog world, we used to think of scope as moving from your core business to an adjacent business by leveraging your core competence. Think about in the 20th century, how did Procter & Gamble grow? They moved from laundry detergent to disposable diapers by leveraging their core competence. Procter & Gamble can't enter automobiles. They can only enter spaces where they can leverage their current competence. For instance, one of their competencies is distribution know-how. So when you move from laundry detergent to disposable diapers, you can use the same distribution channel, because a P&G truck is going to a supermarket carrying laundry detergent. You also throw disposable diaper on top. Whereas the digital giants can enter any industry. And that is why the digital giants can grow nonlinear and exponential. Take, for instance, your Apple iPhone. It has got an app called iTunes. They compete with music companies. It has got another app called iPhoto. They compete with Kodak. They have another app, Apple Pay. They compete with financial services. Is there any connection between alarm clock, Kodak, music companies, and finance companies? Nothing. Because the core competence of Apple is data and AI. Because that is their core competence, they can use it to enter any space. By the way, in the early 80s, when I first came to the US, when I used to drive by McDonald's, I always used to be fascinated, because they will have a sign which will say, number of burgers produced and sold. We have now sold 1 million burgers. And if you drive by the same McDonald's 6 months later, they will say 10 million burgers sold. If you go by that McDonald's a year later, they will say 1 billion burgers sold. This is an industrial era way of keeping score. How many burgers do you produce and sell? Digital giants don't keep score that way. They worry about who is eating the burger. Because they know who is eating the burger, they can satisfy all the problems of the individual. For instance, I have a Facebook page. About a decade ago, I made an entry saying my daughter is engaged. Someone in Facebook using machine learning, deep learning, is analyzing my page. Suddenly, I see bridal shower, bridal this, bridal that. Ads are coming through my page because Facebook knows who is eating the burger. Of course, industrial companies like Procter & Gamble or General Motors or TVS may say we are highly customer-centric. I ask the question, what are you customer-centric about? You are customer-centric to sell them more burgers. You are not customer-centric the way digital giants are. Another way I can drive home the same point is, on this chart, what I have on the x-axis is the age of the company. I kind of cut it off at 75 years. Some of these companies have lasted much longer. And on the y-axis, what I have is the market cap. And I again cut it off at 2 trillion. Of course, NVIDIA today is worth 4 trillion. Apple is worth 4 trillion. The point that I want to drive home with this chart is, when you take a look at industrial companies, in the last 100 years, they have grown. But the growth is always linear and gradual. Whereas in the last 18 years, what we have seen is these digital giants have grown non-linear and exponential. On the back of one technology, iPhone. And the reason why iPhone was the inflection point is, on the iPhone, you quickly check the box, I agree, so that you can get to the app. So you gave permission to these digital giants to collect a lot of data on how you make payments, what movies you watch, etc. But the other point that I want to drive home is transformation 2.0, which is by and large over, really relates to B2C consumer sector. Today, the world's GDP, if you add up the GDP of every country, the world's GDP is $100 trillion. Of the $100 trillion, only 25% is in the B2C consumer sector. That's all we have digitized so far. We have only digitized $25 billion, $25 trillion. That's all we have digitized. When we digitize $25 trillion, think about the value we have unleashed. If you add up the market cap of these magnificent 7 tech companies, their market cap is bigger than the GDP of the US. And that's all got created in the last 18 years on the back of one technology, iPhone, and digitizing one sector, B2C, consumer sector. Think about the value we can create if we can digitize the remaining $75 trillion. That is in the B2B industrial sector. This gives me a segue to understand how did these digital giants disrupt the B2C consumer sector? What exactly happened in Transformation 2.0, particularly using which I want to derive 3 important strategy principles. The digital giants use 3 important strategy principles to introduce box 3 strategies. And let's try to understand what they are. And one way I can explain that is by giving you a history lesson in 5 slides. So I want to summarize what happened in the last 18 years in 5 slides. This is history lesson number 1. In the 20th century, this is how we listen to music. Sony Music, Columbia Music, Virgin Music, they were the leaders in the music industry. In fact, I used to teach a case 25 years ago on Sony Music. When I taught a case on Sony Music, I compared the competitive advantage of Sony Music with Columbia Music, with Virgin Music, because they were all thinking of themselves as a product company. How many albums do we produce and sell? How many CDs do we produce and sell? Today, we consume music this way. This is history lesson number 1. Here is history lesson number 2. This is how we watched movies in the 20th century. Sholay was running for 5 years in a movie theater. We all went and enjoyed the movie. Today, this is how we watch movies. In fact, there is only one company from the left made it to the right. That is Disney. And they are struggling in Disney streaming. This is history lesson number 2. Here is history lesson number 3. In the 20th century, this is how we got news and information. Today, this is how we consume news and information. In fact, the very word mainstream media is a throwback to the old days. This is history lesson number 3. Here is history lesson number 4. In the 20th century, this is how we made payments. Either we paid by paper currency or by credit cards. Today, this is how we make payments. History lesson number 4. Here is history lesson number 5. In the 20th century, these were the market leaders in photography. This is how we took photographs. Whereas today, this is how we take photographs. The most important lesson from these 5 slides is an important insight. That is the strategy principle number 1. And that is, if you stop to think about it for a moment, Sony Music is a B2C brand. But their processes stop B2B. All that Sony Music kept track of was number of albums produced and sold, number of CDs produced and sold. Whereas Spotify started to track the music you are listening to in real time. When you track the music an individual is listening to in real time, the process of value creation significantly changes. And strategy is nothing more than the process of value creation. And to capture this phenomena, I've come up with a concept called data graphs. Netflix has a movie graph. LinkedIn has a professional graph. Amazon has a purchase graph. Facebook has a social graph. Google has a search graph. Spotify has a music graph. By the way, Google was the first company to introduce this concept of data graphs. And this word data graph has 2 words, data and graph. Data is not mean big data. It doesn't mean any data. It means smart data. By the way, companies don't suffer from data. We got lots of data. But we have the wrong kind of data. We are drowning in data lakes because we are not collecting smart data. Google said, I'm going to collect smart data. And smart data is product as consumed data. Again, going back to Sony Music tracked product as sold, whereas Spotify tracked product as consumed. So the data Google collects is product as consumed data. Now, what do we mean by this? Let me contrast Google with the physical analog library. Google is similar to an analog library. So if you walked into an analog library, what you see is information kept in different sections. There are history books. Then there are fiction books. There are non-fiction books. There are business books. There are travel books. So information is kept in different sections. Suppose you walk into a physical library, and suppose you go to the history section, and you are taking a look at, you're looking at 10 history books, and then decide to withdraw one book. On that day, the librarian knows only the book you withdrew. The librarian does not know you are looking at 10 history books. Suppose you go back to the same analog library a month later. Now you go to the travel section, and now you're looking at 15 travel books, and then decide to withdraw the book to travel to India. On that day, the librarian only knows that you withdrew the book on travel to India. The librarian does not know you're looking at 15 travel books. Certainly, the librarian has no clue that you came a month earlier and you are looking at history books. This is what Google is able to do. Every search you do on Google is product as consumed. This is not big data. This is smart data. This is product as consumed data. The second word in data graph is graph. We know what graph is. We learned it in high school algebra. Graph is nothing more than a relationship between two variables. So the math teacher in high school will give you values for variable x, values for variable y, and he will ask you to find a relationship between x and y. If there are only two variables, I can take a paper and pencil and draw a relationship. Google has 550 million variables. When I say they have 550 million variables, what I mean is Jaguar as an animal is a variable. Jaguar as a car is a separate variable. When you have 550 million variables, you can't use a paper and pencil and find relationships. You need neural networks. You need deep learning. You need machine learning. So essentially what Google has done is to collect product as consumed data and put it in graphical architecture across 550 million variables, and then use machine learning to analyze that data. Therefore, suppose you have been only searching for animals. If you simply type Jaguar, it'll only bring up Jaguar as an animal. Netflix has a movie graph. What that means is Netflix keeps track of what movie you are watching in real time. Hollywood knew how many movies they produce. That's all they knew. Hollywood did not know what movie you're actually watching in a movie theater. That's what Netflix is able to do. Product as consumed data. Whereas Hollywood and Bollywood and Collywood historically only track product as sold. Netflix knows what movie you're watching, what time of the day you're watching, what zip code you're watching it from, what device you're watching it from. Are you watching it on iPhone or are you watching on big TV? Because a movie like Avatar, you're not going to watch on iPhone. And did you watch the whole movie or stopped in between and keep on rewinding a scene? Because Netflix has product as consumed data, they can give you precise recommendation on what you should watch next. In fact, the first screen in Netflix for me is different than the first screen for my wife. And the first screen, when I push the Netflix app on my iPhone, is different versus if I push the Netflix app on a television screen. In fact, 80% of what we watch in Netflix is based on that recommendation engine. So the first principle is, if you're TVS, if you're Murugappa, if you're Ashok Leyland, do you have a signature data graph? It's not enough. As a TVS, you know how many two-wheelers I produce and sell. That is like McDonald's saying, how many burgers do I produce and sell? Do you know what they are doing with your two-wheeler every day? What are they doing with it? Where are they driving it to? What use are they putting it to? That is product as consumed data. Every one of you should have a signature data graph. Principle number one. The principle number two is, we all knew about direct network effects. We all knew about that before 2007. Direct network effects is where when a new member joins, it adds value to the existing members. This is what direct network effects is all about. Telephone network is a classic example. Suppose there is only one telephone in the world, it is useless. When a second person joins the network, it adds value to the first person. If a telephone network has 1 million members, the next person who joins, again, creates value for the existing 1 million members. We knew about direct network effects before 2007, but the digital giants introduced a second concept called data network effects. Data network effects has nothing to do with new members getting added. This is about how the existing members engage. Let's again go back to Netflix for a moment. Netflix has 200 million subscribers. Suppose, let's assume no new subscriber joins Netflix. That means they don't have any direct network effects. No new members joining. But they will still benefit from data network effects. As long as the 200 current subscribers keep on watching Netflix movies. Every time you watch a movie on your device, you are making the scale, scope, and speed of your data graph grow exponentially. The more search you make in Google, you make the search graph that much stronger in terms of scale, scope, and speed. 3 important principles the digital giants used in the transformation 2.0 to destroy the B2C consumer sector. Principle number 1 is they were able to track product as consumed and construct signature data graphs. Whereas Sony Music tracked product as sold, Spotify tracked product as consumed. Thereby, they were able to not only collect product as consumed, but put them in graphical architecture. Principle number 2, they leverage data network effects. That means Netflix is learning from 200 million subscribers to give solution to a single individual. You are essentially learning across customers. And principle number 3, they are able to use sophisticated AI analysis consisting of 4 types of analysis. So they use AI to do 4 types of analysis on the data graph. Descriptive. Descriptive means what happened. Diagnostic, why did it happen? Predictive, what will happen? But most importantly, prescriptive, what should happen. By the way, most industrial companies, we stop with descriptive analysis. What happened? Whereas these digital giants used AI and did 4 types of analysis in an integrated way. Descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive. Thereby, they can give you recommendations in real time. They can give you recommendations in real time based on what they have learned across customers. It is these 3 principles, B2B companies in Transformation 3.0 will have to follow, which is just starting, as I said. By the way, these digital giants have also given us another wonderful thing, which is called generative AI. And why generative AI is a very big deal is before generative AI came, generative AI is about 5 years old. Before Gen AI, we had AI models. Those AI models can only analyze structured data, quantitative data. Whereas Gen AI can analyze qualitative data. It can analyze images. It can analyze sounds. That is what is important in the B2B industrial sector. Because in factories, you have the sound of machines. You have images. You have videos. Therefore, I say we have an opportunity where Gen AI is going to put data graph on steroids. And that takes me to Transformation 3.0, which is just starting. And I contend this is the India opportunity. By the way, in Transformation 2.0, we were dealing with how digital giants have destroyed the B2C consumer sector. Whereas in Transformation 3.0, we are dealing with asset-heavy industries. These are buildings. These are power plants. These are aircraft engines. These are tractors. Therefore, the physical product in transformation 3.0 will not disappear. That is why I call this fusion strategy. You have to fuse the physical product with digital technologies and fundamentally create new strategies. Now, why do we care about transformation 3.0? We care because we are talking about $75 trillion. That is not a number we want to laugh at. This is a big number. And this game is just starting, as it were. While this game is starting, there are some companies which have made some progress. I'm going to give you an example of one industrial company and then kind of close the conversation. The company I'm going to use is John Deere. John Deere in the 20th century was a powerhouse industrial company, classic industrial company, making big tractors, make them high quality, more reliable, and make money. That's the business they were in. But today, they have become a fusion strategy company. The one way I can explain it is, in the 20th century, imagine a farmer in the US has 2,000 acres. And when you plant on 2,000 acres, along with the plant, there will also be weeds. So as a farmer, you have to get rid of the weeds. Now, how can you get rid of the weeds on a 2,000-acre farm? In the 20th century, you can use one approach, which is recruit hundreds of thousands of workers. Let them go row by row by row and pluck out the weeds. Well, that is expensive, that is error-prone, and in the United States, we don't have hundreds of thousands of workers. A second approach the farmers did in the 20th century was blanket spray. So take a helicopter and spray to 2,000 acres across with pesticides. That's one way to kill the weeds. But when you blanket spray, you can also inadvertently kill the plants. So John Deere has now become a digital industrial company, and recently they introduced this product called See and Spray. And as the word says, what the See and Spray does is it moves at 25 miles per hour. When it moves at 25 miles per hour, it takes millions of photographs of what it sees, because the See and Spray is equipped with sensors, IoT, and computer vision, just like a Tesla car. It's got computer vision. It is taking millions of photographs as it moves in the field. When it takes the photographs, it in real time processes the photograph using machine learning, deep learning, neural network. And when it processes the photograph, it tells them this is a weed or this is a plant. And when they spot a weed, they just kill the weed. And then they keep moving. And at a rapid pace, they can remove the weeds. Now, think about the value that is creating to the farmer. First of all, the use of pesticide drops by 90%. Because when you do blanket spraying, weeds are only in 10% of the field, but you are throwing pesticides across 2,000 acres. Whereas when you do precise targeted spraying, you are saving costs on pesticides. And pesticides are a huge cost. Second, with See and Spray, you only kill the weeds without killing the plant. Third, when you use pesticide, it is pollutant to the environment. It is unfriendly to planet Earth. Therefore, when you conserve the use of pesticides, you're also being environmentally friendly. This game is just starting. And the reason I say this is India opportunity is Gen AI. The game for consumer AI is already won by Silicon Valley. OpenAI, Anthropic, Google have already won the game in large language models for the consumer sector. Because in consumer sector, one large language model can handle all consumer-related data. So ChatGPT can handle all consumer-related data. Whereas in the industrial sector, we will have multiple large language models for the industry. A large language model that analyzes the data for automobiles has to be different than the foundation model that analyzes the data for buildings. So we will have lots of foundation models in the industry. And the other big difference is in the consumer sector, the consumer AI hallucinates a lot, and it gives you 80% accurate recommendations. 80% accurate recommendation is okay in the B2C consumer sector. Suppose if Amazon gives you a recommendation of 10 books, 8 you liked, 2 you didn't like. You are irritated, but you can live with it. But a British Air in the B2B asset heavy sector, British Air cannot get 80% accurate recommendation from Rolls-Royce. When you're flying the plane at 50,000 miles above ground, 80% accuracy is fatal. Therefore, the large language model for the industry has to be 100% accurate. And the large language models for the industries have not yet been developed. That is an India opportunity. We in India have the software experts. We have invested in digital infrastructure, and we talk about Make in India movement. Let's combine the three and really create large language models for the industry. We can't create for every industry. Let us choose maybe 10 industries where India has a chance to become a global leader in large language models and the applications that sit on the large language models. What would be one sector? I say two-wheelers. Why I say two-wheelers? Because India has the maximum market share in two-wheelers. Between Hero, Bajaj, and TVS and others, we produce 35% of the two-wheelers produced and sold in the world today. So we have bulk. We have a market share leadership. Let us make our two-wheelers a digital industrial product. That means let us equip them with sensors, computer vision, IoT, and collect product as consumed data. Then leverage data network effects, and then create the large language models for mobility. When you create a large language model for mobility, you can then apply it beyond two-wheelers to automobiles. That's also mobility. We can apply it to trucks, not just in India, but globally. Just like the way we led the IT services boom, we can lead the world in industrial AI. I say this is a mega opportunity knocking on the doors of India. And let me conclude by what does it all mean for the discipline of management. As corporations, we must fundamentally think about strategy in a very different way. That's what I call from strategy now to strategy next. Our whole concepts, the way we teach strategy has to change. The way we practice strategy has to change. Just to give you 3 examples of what I mean by we have to fundamentally change the way we teach and practice strategy. Think about our notions of scale. Our notions of scale that we teach, even today, when we teach in strategy classes, is always based on physical products. Because product-based scale gives you cost advantage. If you produce and sell more cars, you are a low-cost player. But we need to shift our thinking to data scale. From vertical integration to virtual integration. You don't need to own many assets. That's the vertical integration concept. Virtual integration means I can put data hooks on others' products. And thereby, that's what Uber has done. Uber owns nothing. But they're able to put data hooks on both on the customer side, on the supplier side, and collect enormous amounts of data. Again, think about our definition of scope. Our definition of scope is always based on adjacencies, core competencies. We need to think of scope in a very different way. Again, go back to Tesla as an example. Tesla today is a digital industrial product. By the way, Tesla does not have market share in automobiles. They don't sell the most number of cars. General Motors sells probably 12 million automobiles a year. Tesla maybe sells 1 million automobiles a year. So in terms of number of cars they sell, it is very few. But how come Tesla's market cap is so enormous? In fact, Tesla's market cap is higher than the next 12 automobile companies combined. How come? Because they excel in data scale. They excel in miles driven. They have a lot more data on what you do with Tesla car. I own a Tesla. When I own a Tesla, they know every time I drive that car, they know where I am driving it, what is the purpose of my trip, etc., etc. Because they have product as consumed data, their scale and scope is phenomenal. For instance, I don't know whether you know, Tesla is a very big player in auto insurance business. By the way, historically, in the 20th century, automobile companies were a separate industry than auto insurance because they require different core competence. So automobile companies were General Motors, Ford, and so on and so forth. Auto insurance in the US would be Travelers, Aetna, Hartford, etc. How come Tesla is coming into auto insurance? If you think for a moment, the traditional auto insurance companies essentially assess risk at the average level. Essentially, the traditional auto insurance companies will segment the customer based on demographics maybe, and then put everybody in a given demographics at the same risk class. For instance, I am 77 years old. If I went to Travelers for auto insurance, they will say this is an old guy. He's a high-risk guy. So they'll charge me enormous premium. Whereas Tesla assesses risk at the individual level because they know how I drive my Tesla. If I'm a careful driver, they're going to offer me attractive insurance. Therefore, their scope expansion. Tesla moved from automobile to insurance because their core competence happens to be product as consumed. Again, we need to fundamentally rethink how value gets created in companies. We always think of value as product-based. I want you to shift. Again, if you're TVS, don't think of yourself as producing and selling two-wheelers. Think of yourself as solving the problems of mobility for an individual. Shift from products to solutions. Instead of made by us, think about solved by us. Again, in the 20th century, John Deere used to think we are in the business of producing and selling tractors. That's how John Deere thought of their business. When you are producing and selling tractors, if that is your business definition, fertilizer company is not a competitor. Because fertilizer companies are producing, selling fertilizer. And I am producing and selling tractors. But today, John Deere says, I am in the business of solving the problems of the farmer. If you're in the business of solving the problems of the farmer, fertilizer companies are your competitor, or could well be your partner. If you can create a platform and invite fertilizer companies, seed companies, other pesticide companies to come on your platform. Again, let me close with my 3 boxes. I say the biggest opportunity that India has in box 3, in my opinion, is Gen AI. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for India. And the value we can create, imagine the value digital giants created in 18 years. That will be nothing compared to the value that is going to be unleashed when you lead in industrial AI. That is the opportunity. And if you want to capture that opportunity, you have to think differently. By the way, I got this notion of thinking differently and out-of-the-box thinking, which is what you need to excel in fusion strategy, by watching movies. You see, I grew up in Tamil Nadu watching Kamal Haasan and Rajinikanth movies. And I remember one movie of Rajinikanth where, towards the end of the movie, maybe the last 20 minutes of the movie, the villain ties down Rajinikanth and kidnaps the heroine in a Mercedes, of course. And then the police get into the police jeep and start to chase the Mercedes. You see, the police jeep can only play by the same rules by which the Mercedes can play. Because police jeep can only go on the same roads in which a car can go. But the police jeep tends to be a little slower. So you can see in the movie, the distance between the Mercedes and the police jeep keep on increasing. After 10 minutes, Rajinikanth unties himself, and he already knows he is 10 minutes too late. You can't catch up with the Mercedes by playing by the same rules by which the Mercedes plays. You have to think out of the box. So what does he do? He jumps on top of a horse. You see, a horse can maneuver in narrow lanes where cars can't go. So he goes to a lot of back alleys, climbs a mountain, and jumps in front of the Mercedes. That is thinking differently. That is the out-of-the-box thinking. That is the mindset we need to have. Moving from number of cars produced and sold, number of two-wheelers produced and sold to, can we track what the customer is using the two-wheeler for every day? In closing, I read a weekly column on my LinkedIn page on 3-box solution. And if you want to follow my work on innovation, certainly you can follow me on LinkedIn. By the way, if there are any questions that I haven't answered today, you can certainly post it on my LinkedIn page. I can use your questions to write the next week's column, so to speak. I want to close with a few thoughts. This whole notion of 3-box solution is not my original idea. This is an idea, a philosophy that was written down in Hindu scripts 5,000 years ago. As you know, Hinduism tried to explain why the life form has survived and prospered and sustained for centuries. That's what Hinduism tries to explain. How come life has sustained for centuries? And they try to explain by the role of 3 lords. There is Lord Vishnu. He is the god of preservation. That is box 1, manage the present. Then there is Lord Shiva. He is the god of destruction. That is box 2, destroy the past. Then there is Lord Brahma. He is the god of creation. That is box 3, create the future. And what Hinduism says is, none of these gods are more important than the other 2. Only if these 3 gods do their job in a balanced way, humanity as we know, human life form as you know, will survive for centuries. In fact, Hinduism draws life as a circle. By the way, the moment you draw life as a circle, there is no beginning, there is no end. Every life form that is born in this universe will be preserved. That is the job of Lord Vishnu. Box 1, manage the present. Every life form that is preserved will be ultimately destroyed. That is the job of Lord Shiva. That is box 2, destroy the past. And everything that is destroyed is going to get recreated. That is the job of Lord Brahma, create the future. And everything that gets created will be preserved, and so on and so forth. I have simply taken something written 5,000 years ago and simply repackage it for, if your corporation, if your TVS has to survive forever. It is the same principle. Preservation, destruction, recreation as a rhythmic cycle. It is never mission accomplished. It is never project completed, because box 3 today will become box 1 tomorrow. Because the world keeps changing. New technologies arrive. By the way, the Hindu scholars also married the right wives with the lords. Lord Vishnu is married to Lakshmi. And Lakshmi, as you know, is the goddess of wealth. So if you do a good job in box 1, you're going to make a ton of money. Lord Shiva is married to Parvati. Parvati is a goddess of power. You need power to destroy things. And Lord Brahma is married to Saraswati. And Saraswati is a goddess of wisdom. You need wisdom to imagine the future. Let me just close with one thought, and that is, this 3-box solution is not only to transform India, not only to transform corporations in India, you can also use it to transform your own personal life. Everyone in this room, you must create a 3-box plan for yourself, not for your company, but for you. What is your true north? What capabilities you have today? What new capabilities you need to build? How do you transform your own life and reinvent yourself? It's very important. Because for you as an individual also, future is now. Future is not about what we do in the future. Therefore, it is very important for us to wake up in the morning and take a look at your calendar and say, did I spend enough time in box 1 today? Did I spend enough time in box 2 today? Did I spend enough time in box 3 today? Very important. By the way, as individuals, the reason we don't spend enough time in box 3 every day is because if you don't spend enough time in box 3 today, it doesn't hurt you today, you see? It only hurts you in the future. That's why you postpone those investments. Think about a box 3 investment for an individual, which would be to do exercise every day. If you did exercise every day, you are assured of future health. Now, why can't we practice this simple commonsensical thing? Because on February 2nd, 2026, you'll wake up in the morning and say, you know what, I really don't have time to do exercise today. I got a busy time at office, and after office, I got to go listen to this VG guy. I got a lot of emails to check. I really don't have time to do exercise today. If you don't do exercise today, your health doesn't decline today, you see. It only declines in 2030. That's why you postpone that investment. By the way, if you don't do exercise today, your health actually declines today. The decline is so small, you don't notice. Future comes in daily doses. Future never arrives all of a sudden in the future. If India wants to be a leader in industrial AI by year 2050, it's not about what India has to do in 2050. It's about what are you doing today to create that future. Future is a function of actions you take in the present. Let's accept that. Let's understand that. Let's practice that as a discipline. By the way, the last 60 minutes, all of you put your box 1 on hold, right? And say, let's listen to this VG, and maybe he's got some ideas. My talk is going to end in another minute or so. After that, don't go back to box 1 100%, is my point. This is not mission accomplished. This is not journey completed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Govindarajan. This has been one of the most insightful sessions that I've been a part of, and I think I'll carry this, and all of us here in this room can carry this, that future is a function of what we do in the present. We now move to a very interesting Q&A session. We have collected your questions while the lecture was going on, and I request Professor Suresh Srinivasan, who is the Professor of Strategy at Great Lakes Institute of Management, to kindly moderate the session for us.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for such an insightful talk, Professor VG. And I've got a number of questions from the audience. Trying to do justice by clubbing them together. So I'll straight away hit for the first question. To implement a fusion strategy, what are the first concrete steps traditional legacy firms should take? Kindly give us an insight from a big market size company as well as some startups.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think whether you're a small startup, medium-sized company, large company, my advice would be identical. I think first you have to start with what is your vision for 2030. It's very important for us to have a point of view about how we are going to create value fundamentally differently than the way we are creating value today by fusing digital and physical. And what's our point of view for year 2030? Then ask yourself, some companies may have already made some progress. Suppose let's take a company which has made no progress. I say then ask yourself in the next 12 months, what is one experiment I am going to conduct? Perhaps to develop a minimum viable data graph. What would a minimum viable data graph look like for me for TVS? And you can actually take two-wheelers today that you're making, which are analog product, and retrofit it with Bluetooth and other capabilities to start tracking product as consumed. The ultimate would be to design the two-wheelers with AI at the center. That's the key. Tesla doesn't take an analog car and add sensors. No. Tesla designs the car as a computer. Therefore, they have a computer platform on which the car is built. A TVS may not be there. So if you're not there, in the next 12 months, let us retrofit our analog products. Maybe in just one geographical region in Madras, and then try to track what the consumer is doing with that car every day. And then say, can I construct a minimum viable data graph? And see the power of that. Therefore, I'll say, think big, start small with one experiment.
Perfect. Where is the challenges likely to come through when you're actually putting through a fusion strategy? Is it likely to be the organizational transformation side of it, or absorbing the digital capabilities, or which data to focus on? Or is it the culture, talent, and structure angle where there's going to be a problem?
It's another great question. I say fusion strategy is not a technology problem. It is an organizational problem. It is a mindset problem. It is a culture problem. Because technology is needed, of course, but technology is the easy part. What really is, it's about leadership. It's about mindset. It's about culture change. Therefore, focus on that. Get the organization ready for this new era.
The moment the customer knows the data is being captured, right, there is a hesitation. For example, companies like Progressive Insurance took ages to get their telematic devices put into cars. So what are the privacy laws going to talk about this? Is it going to be competitive advantage for your purpose to absorb this data and use it, or there are ethical responsibilities?
Yeah.
And especially one of the as person has said that Dr. Bala strongly believed in ethical leadership. How do we really balance this too?
Yeah. You see, in the B2C consumer sector, in Transformation 2.0, consumers, without knowing, gave permission because we were checking that box. I approve. We didn't even read what was there and gave a lot of permission because we were so eager to get to the app. That is not going to happen in the B2B industrial sector because, first of all, think about a tractor company. The number of farmers to whom you're selling is finite. We're not talking about 8 billion individuals. We are talking about a finite set of farmers. Second, the moment you sell the tractor does not belong to you. It belongs to the farmer. So you have to get explicit permission from the farmer to put sensors, computer vision on an equipment they own and share the product as consumed data with you. That means you have to earn their trust. Otherwise, they're not going to do it. So privacy is extremely important. Therefore, if you are John Deere, if you are Mahindra, you're in the tractor business, you better have protocols which will ensure that you are not going to abuse the data. But you have to get into explicit contract with your customers to collect that data. And customers will part with the data only if it adds value to them. So you got to show them how it creates value for the farmer.
Mr. VG, an extension question here. What governance mechanism should boards adopt to oversee responsible AI-driven strategy decisions?
If we are talking about governance in an overall sense for AI is, I believe, AI is the most disruptive force we have seen. I think AI is going to be the most disruptive force our generation is going to see. It is bigger than steam engine, much, much bigger than the steam engine. It is much, much bigger than internet. It is much, much bigger than the app. Because if you think about for a moment, in digital technology, we moved from the web era, which is the internet, to the app era, which is what Apple created, to the AI agent era. The reason AI agent era is a humongous disruption is in the web era, essentially information was decentralized. When internet came, I can open a web page. Any individual can open a web page and somebody else can link to your web page. That is how you create web of knowledge. Then we went to app era. That's the humongous success of Apple when they introduced app architecture inside their iPhone. You can actually create a business called Uber. Uber was not possible in the personal computer era. It was possible only in the app era, where I can actually use my iPhone and call a car. App era created enormous value. That was a huge disruption as compared to internet. But the AI agent era will take it to a whole new level, because in the app era, information was fragmented. Uber did not know anything about my finances, did not know anything about what goods I bought. Whereas in the AI agent era, the whole agentic AI is about learning from all these different AI agents and give you real-time recommendation. Therefore, I say this is huge. Because it is huge, it also creates risks. I totally agree there has to be governance, there has to be careful use of AI, etc. But that's a whole topic we can talk about. But we cannot stop this force. This is going to disrupt every industry, whether we like it or not. Let us get ahead of it.
Yeah. So using the physical assets and real-time data AI, which is the future strategy, what is your assessment of richness and reach of our product in use data today in the traditional industries? The 75% kind of opportunity gap we're talking about, have they started moving there, or at what level are they?
I think the $75 trillion is yet to be digitized. Therefore, the digitization of industries will move in different speed. I believe the first B2B industry which is digitized would be automobiles. But maybe agricultural tractor may be the next in terms of evolution, but lots of industries are still caught in the B2B analog era. So it's going to be different industries will move at different speed. This is why I say this is an India opportunity, because we can grab 10 industries which are today analog and say, how do we take the lead and make them digital? That requires government stepping in. We created Aadhaar, we created UPI. That required a government stepping in, and some champion like Nandan Nilekani taking the lead in Aadhaar. We need that kind of leadership and say, we are going to give incentives for people to develop large language models for mobility. And I think India can lead, not just in India, but globally.
Perfect. Two more questions, Professor VG. Do you see India can leapfrog advanced economies and AI-led innovation business models similar to the reverse innovation which you talked about?
Without a question. I think if we focus in the right way, because the consumer AI, that game is over. That game belongs to Silicon Valley. And Silicon Valley has cornered that. We cannot win that game. But industrial AI is in the pre-ChatGPT moment. Industrial AI is where ChatGPT was 5 years ago. So it's just starting. And as I mentioned earlier, India has a unique advantage because we have invested in public digital infrastructure, Aadhaar, UPI, digital locker, etc. We have got made in India, move, and we have software engineers, the talent. What are we waiting for?
Your advice on young leaders, educators to stay relevant in an AI-driven world. How management education should evolve?
Great question. I think I am part of management education. We tend to resist technology because we are caught up in the way we teach, which is in person, coming to class, delivering lectures. I think higher education is hugely going to be disrupted by Gen AI. We got to change the way we deliver education. And my framework for how Gen AI will impact higher education and management education in general, management education in particular, higher education in general, is I think we should use a bifurcated approach when it comes to AI. By that I mean, there has to be some parts of our higher education which should be AI-free zone. We should not use AI. That would be foundational skills. When you teach an undergrad how to write, the first writing class, you cannot ask them to use Gen AI. Of course, you can feed the topic to Gen AI, it will produce an essay. But that is problematic because the student doesn't develop the faculty to write. By the way, when someone says, I'm a bad writer, they are not a bad writer, they are a bad thinker. So the thinking process is important when you compose writing. That should be a free zone. So if you're a computer science undergrad, you must teach them how to code. Even though Gen AI can do the coding, you must teach them how to code without the use of AI. So foundational skills. When it comes to management education, I teach strategy, 5 forces. I want them to learn it without AI because that's foundational skill. Everything else is up for grabs. We must use Gen AI.
Thank you very much, Professor V. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Professor Suresh, for the engaging discussion. To formally honor Dr. Vijay Govindarajan, we now move to the felicitation ceremony. And with that, may I now invite our beloved Professor Debashish Sanyal, Director at Great Lakes Institute of Management, Chennai, and Group Captain Vijay Kumar VSF, Executive Director, MMA, to come to the dais to present Dr. Vijay and the Distinguished Thought Leader Award, sir. May I request Professor Vijay to please come. Thank you so much, sir. As we come towards the conclusion of this memorable evening, I now invite Dr. Raj Krishnan Shankar, Professor of Entrepreneurship and Program Director, PGPM, Great Lakes Institute of Management, to deliver the vote of thanks. Sir.
Professor Vijay, I don't know what to say on behalf of this group. I just have to ask, do you have enough to take away for a night? I think we had a lot. It was amazing sitting through your lecture. Thanks a ton for doing this once again. On behalf of Great Lakes, I wish to thank so many of you for being with us this evening. Let me start by first just highlighting this event. This is a very important event to us because Dr. Bala always believed in ideas, and every year we wish to bring really important ideas to Chennai, and we're so glad Dr. Vijay agreed to come and do this for us. So thanks a ton. Thanks to the board for triggering this last year. Gautam is here, Mohan, Sudhakar, the others, for immediately jumping on and saying, no, we have to get this done. Thanks, Gautam, on behalf of everyone. Thanks to Dr. Debashish Sanyal. He always, whenever we come with ideas to him, he says, yeah, let's go do it. So thanks for your mentorship. It's very, very helpful and guiding. Thanks to everyone else at Great Lakes, a huge team, BPR, admin, and so on and so forth. All of them do so much. I don't know how they do this. It's like magic. They make every event happen, so meticulously. We have an amazing partner, Dr. Bala's partner actually, Madras Management Association. Every event we do with them is so special to us. They make it even more special. So thanks, MMA. Big thanks to you. I mean, so many of you there. I'll just name Sri Lakshmi Narayan, Group Captain Vijay Kumar. I mean, the list is so long. Every one of you are our friends. Thanks a ton for being with us this evening. And once again, joining hands with us to do this event together. It is our pleasure. And last but not the least, I want to thank every single one of you who took the time to come this evening, spend the time listening to new ideas. I'm sure after this, you're going to not just draw 3 boxes for yourself, for your products, but also for your companies. And we really wish you will fuse and create new strategies for the future. Have a nice evening and look forward to more conversations.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being a part of the second Dr. Bala V. Balachandran Memorial Lecture. As we move to dinner, which is served just outside the hall, we carry forward not just the memory of a visionary educator, but a renewed commitment to ideas that matter, leadership that endures, and institutions that shape the future. Have a wonderful evening, all of you all. Thank you so much for joining us.